Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Sports and Ish with Misty V and Vince Edwards. We have an amazing guest again joining us this week. We have PNutt Jordan. Welcome to our podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
There's nothing really much to tell about me. I appreciate you guys having me first off, but I'm just a guy trying to continue to dream of being an old ball coach, as they call it.
Right. Daddy?
How in depth do you want me to go? How in depth do you want me to go about me? Like, I can
as in the depth you want, man. The viewers is trying to get to know who you are. So go ahead.
You guys want to hear my whole story?
Sure.
All right. So my whole story started like this. I was born in Oklahoma. I grew up in Las Vegas. And when I moved to Vegas, I was probably like 10. And as I moved to Vegas, that's when I kind of started getting into basketball. But before it was baseball. And as a baseball guy, that's kind of what you did in Oklahoma, was like baseball and football. And so moving to Vegas, everybody played basketball. But I had a basketball background, and my dad played basketball, so on and so forth. But anyway, my dad realistically sat down with me and he told me, he said, listen, I'm this tall, your mom's this tall. So this is kind of what you have to look forward to.
Wait, so how tall are they?
My dad's like 5'7" on a good day, maybe. I'm 5'5". I'm barely 5'8". I'm barely 5'8", to be honest. Right? So,
all right, got you.
We're gonna let this.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. How can I, make the best of this? But I always had a thinking mind. So like, I was truly like, I guess what you call like a coach on the floor, right? So I was like really good, and I was good enough to, obviously do high school and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, my high school teammate, who was a lottery pick in 2003, was my backup in high school. And so we always laugh about it. Like when people are like, oh, so I was like, I could play a little bit. So I went to college. I was really small physically, went to junior college, left junior college, and ended up back in Nevada, Reno, where I went to play. But after transferring and doing all this kind of stuff, I took summer school because I was huge in academics. I was almost finished with school. So I was like, I don't even want to add extra credits. So then my buddy gets drafted and he's like, I made it. Move out here with me. Come work with me. I was like, all right. So I started training, and it just led to different players because I had access to doing that. So I was working with different NBA guys because everybody comes through Vegas in the summertime. And so I was like, oh, well, PNutt, I'm here, and I hang out with my buddy, whatever. So I got to working out. Then my buddy started an AAU program. And so I started coaching on the AAU program, doing that whole circuit. But at the same time, I was training people. And literally, this is how I was making money. I was training people on the side and then doing AAU. And AAU led to just more and more handshakes. And then I kind of just made a name for myself in Vegas as this guy PNutt is the guy who can get you better, so on and so forth. And by luck and chance, Gary Payton II. So Big Gary, the glove, played with my buddy in the pros, but we were already cool.
Nice.
And he lived in Vegas. So he's like, I got some boys, you want to work with them? I was like, yeah, I got you. And I started working with the youngest son, actually. And little Gary, or GP2, was sitting on a couch. And I'm like, bro, what are you doing? Let's go hoop. And he just kind of was just really ain't my thing. And I'm like, yeah, well, beats getting yelled at by your dad or make you clean up or, whatever. So he came and he joined the AU team. And then we just started working really, really close. And he, went to college and all that kind of stuff. Well, he was bouncing around and Milwaukee had signed him. And I was sitting at home, and Big Gary calls hey, let's go to Milwaukee and watch Gary in the playoffs. I was like, all right, cool. And this is how basketball is so weird and how it works. This was a Monday. He calls, let's go Thursday. I was like, all right. So Tuesday, my buddy's agent, who we ended up being friends because he represented my buddy his whole career. I asked him, I was like, you know anybody that let me do pre-draft? I'll pay for it. I just want to go and kind of see what it's like. And he was like, oh, let me make a few calls. So then Wednesday we left to go to Milwaukee. I'm sitting in practice. Jay Kidd was coaching at the time. I'm sitting in practice and I get a phone call from my buddy's agent. He's like, yo, where you at? In the gym? I'm like, yeah, but not like working people out. I'm actually in Milwaukee getting ready to watch Gary. He's like, it's funny, I just called the GM over there. And I was like, I just met the GM. He's like, let me call you back. So he calls the GM. And as he calls the GM comes back in. And he's like, are you PNutt? And I was like, yeah, I'm PNutt, but I introduced myself by my real name. It's Daryl Jordan. And he's like, oh, I just talked, to Mike. He's like, come talk to me. So I go to his office and they just asked me, like, what have I done? And I was like, man, I'm like grinding. Like I've trained people. I've worked at AAU. I've coached junior college. I've helped kids. I've, did numerous college basketball camps or whatever I could to like get my, hands wet, my foot in the door or whatever. And so he's like, wow, that's crazy. And then I left. I came back out that year for pre-draft. So I'm like 11 days set up, hotel, paid for myself. I'm like, oh man, I get to like see what it's like on this side. He's there one day and I'm like working guys out doing whatever. And he takes the Orlando job. And so I call my buddy like, yo, he left.
Wow.
Like, I'm here, like, I don't know nobody here. You know what I mean? Like, except there's one guy that I didn't know there named Monty Buckley, who he played at Cal with J Kidd. He's like a huge like guy in my corner. He's always told me like, PNutt, like you're great at like training people, like keep doing it. So he was there. I'm like, what am I doing? He calls my buddy. It's like, yo, I like this kid. He's like, I seen him, one time, and like he just got the guy's attention. And like a year later, they called. I'm like working like a regular, like 9 to 5, training on the side. Like, dang, like what's going on? Get a call. It's like, are you willing to move to Orlando? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, we got a job for you. I was like, I'm in. I like put in my I put in 2 weeks at the job, like, and they're like, yeah, do whatever, you got time in summer league, blah, blah. I'm like, cool. I put my 2 weeks in. I went to Orlando and then got to Orlando, worked with that staff, had the opportunity to go with Markelle Fultz when they traded for Markelle Fultz. Took that opportunity with Markelle Fultz, worked with him. Like they sent me on assignment where I was like in Cali with him the whole summer. Like myself and like another coach, just like working, built that relationship, that trust. Then from there, the NBA life, as Vince will tell you, is very unnavigatable. If that's a word. Like it's not as clear cut as what people think. And so did my time in Orlando, got an opportunity to go to Minnesota, got an opportunity to go to the G League team, went down there. I had a bigger role. Whatever happens there as far as like the new front office and just the coaching changes in the G League is just so different from the NBA. And that's kind of like how I set my time, and that's how you got PNutt.
How did you get the nickname PNutt, just out of curiosity?
So I've always been like the smallest guy of the crew. I'm saying with basketball players, so everybody's like, "Oh, it's the PNutt of the crew, PNutt of the crew," and then like, oh, you got a peanut head, and it just like stuck since I was like a kid, and like it just never changed, and I don't run from it. And there's people throughout the league who probably know my nickname before they know my first name, just because everybody kind of introduces me as PNutt. And like I said, I don't run from it. It's funny because like in high school, I remember my first recruiting letter. The coach like was like, dear PNutt. I was like, oh, like he even, so it was like kind of funny. And then when I was working in Orlando, I think the only person that called me by my first name was the head coach. Like everybody else was like PNutt, 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 PNutt. So it's just, that's how I got it. That's stuff.
Right. Nice. Very cool.
You talked about how, like, for some people that I know, especially for our viewers, because we try to give them a point of view. At least I always try to, being in the professional world and being in basketball, trying to be a part of NBA. You called it would you say unnavigable?
It's unnavigatable.
Unnavigatable. Cool. And well, like you said, clear. It's not as clear cut as some people would think. So how would you break that down to someone who's just like looking from the outside looking in? Because, we always got people that are just like, you were there, what happened? Or, when they don't fully understand the business side.
Sure. So I would look at it like this. So I had I would say luxury of, I came into the professional world because my dear friend was the lottery pick. So I actually got to see like the hanging outside, like, oh, I'm one of the crew, the flunkies, the so on and so forth, right? And I saw how that was navigated. And then as I started like working people out, I got to move to the business side from a player development standpoint with where I'm dealing with players one-on-one, and I saw how they conducted business. And then when I got the opportunity to get to the professional side, I saw like how the whole system is ran. So why I say it's unnavigatable is if you look at like the last 5 NBA coaches that won titles, they've all been fired, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, right? It's just front office changes or going in a new direction, getting younger, wanting a veteran staff, whatever it is. So it's not necessarily like how good you are, because everybody, whether it's a coach, whether it's a player, whether it's a video guy, whether it's a front office staff, medical, whoever, right? They're great at what they do. Like, you're a chosen few, but it doesn't always align, right? So you can have, I've always been told, always be ready. And that works for everybody. And I'll give you a small example. If you take Tyler Harrell got hurt, Duncan Robinson was paid a couple years before, but as soon as he got hurt and he got another opportunity to play again, it's like he never got off the bike, right? He right back in the flow, playing like he's always ready. And I think sometimes in this business, somebody gets hurt, that's your opportunity. And you're looking like, oh, you're playing on someone's downfall. It's not necessarily like that. It's, we're trying to win. And if this is your job, whether you're the first man or the 15th man, when your number's called, you need to be ready like you're the first man called. And so people lose sight of that, like as far as players, right? They're like, oh, I'm never playing. I'm sitting behind this all-star. Yeah, you're sitting behind an all-star, but like anything could happen, right? And whatever, anything, someone could take a day off, right? Like, oh, we're resting or whatever. You get your opportunity. What's the young kid name in Brooklyn? Cam something?
Thomas.
Cam, right. Comes in and gets 40. Bam, 40 again. Bam, 40 again. Then he's benched.
Yeah.
So it's not that he can't play, because you can see he can play, but it's just the people in front of him have a more priority, or they're, a bigger role on the team. So you never know how it's going to go. You never know what coach is going to take a new job and bring staff. You don't know what front office is going to hire their guys. You don't know who's going to get hurt, right? That's the biggest thing from a player standpoint. You never know when your opportunity is going to come or why it's going to come, because there's a lot of people who are like, man, he can play. He can play. He may not fit this NBA team, right? He may not fit this NBA role. He may not fit in the NBA, but he can play, right? You have to have some type of like niche, right? You gotta feel. So you can't navigate that because you don't know. So all you can do is stay in the gym, get better, work on your game, ask questions, watch film, do all the things that you can control, because a lot of it's out of your control. And it's the same way on the coaching side. Like, you can't control what moves are going to be made. Or in some cases, like on the coaching side, you may not align with what the head coach believes, or you may not understand what the front office wants to do. And that's like a part that like you have to figure out. And it's not like you can ask a question, right? Like, if I believe, well, I don't believe so much like this, but if I believe like let's say Vince says, hey, we need to shoot 33s a game. And I'm saying, cool, shoot 33s a game, but we have guys on our team who can make 50 mid-range shots, and we struggle with the three. How do you align that up to make it all work? And if it doesn't work, then somebody gets moved on. We'll get a whole bunch of three-point shooters, or we'll get a whole bunch of mid-range and change our whole game. So that's why it's hard to navigate.
Agree. I agree. I know you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about the coaches and guys getting fired. I know Misty can attest to this, because she's always sending me something when a coach gets fired or somebody gets hired. So what would you say is, I guess, the brink of all that? Because like you said, it's kind of hard to see or say, but you see these championship coaches getting fired, and you see these guys who are even coach of the years. They were just a coach of the year last year, and they're getting fired. So what would you say to an audience out there that's kind of just trying to understand the flow a little bit from their perspective, because somebody's on their favorite team, or some of them just, they never been behind the scenes. So just kind of get that little breakdown. So
how I see it is, it's not about basketball. As a professional athlete, Vince, you should know how to play basketball. I shouldn't have to teach you how to play basketball. Yes, I can help you become a better professional. I can help you get habits. I can help you become better at like whatever your specialty is. But I can't teach you to play basketball. I shouldn't have to. So everyone there can play basketball. So you have to know like your role and what you do. But how the NBA kind of, to me, is now is it's more than like coaching. So I have to be able to get along with players. I have to be relatable with players. I have to understand what the front office vision is. So it's a huge mind situation, right? Because if I'm telling you, you know, we're gonna run a pistol, I'm gonna show you one time. If you don't get it, you need to come after practice and work with the coach or go watch film because there's not enough hours in the day to practice to get you better. And then if the front office, let's say, says, hey, we want a coach that's going to push the pace and we're going to, you know, get up shots, blah, blah. But I have a coach who says, hey, I'm defensive oriented and I really don't rest on offense. How do you make that work? And that sometimes I believe, and again, this is my opinion, Casey was coach of the year and then he lost his job. And as he lost the job, he got another job because he's, you know, a great coach. For me and Dwayne Casey can't coach. Ended up winning a championship. Yes, they made a few changes, getting Kawhi Leonard and so on and so forth. But it doesn't say that Nick Nurse is such a better coach that he won a championship and Dwayne Casey couldn't do it. It was just the vision obviously didn't line up, or they didn't have the right piece at the time that Casey was there. And that's happened, you know, to other coaches. It's just a matter of like everybody has to be on the same page. And one thing that I've learned, you know, about the business sometimes it's they've worked with people, right? Like I'm an outsider. Like my NBA coaching friends are always like you made it. Like, you know, you made it like everybody else didn't make it, right? You're like one of those guys who are an outlier. Most of these people know each other. They've worked with each other. They understand what they're getting from that person. So they'll rehire because they understand that vision, or they, you know, say, hey, we like this vision and we're going to add this to it so that this makes us complete and this helps us win. So it's not always about, you know, whether that person can or cannot coach. It's more about the pulse of the team, you know, the message getting through. Do you have all the guys buying in? Does the front office have the same vision as the coach? And when all that lines up, it usually works out. Now, I also was told the way to win a championship is that a team that doesn't get hurt. And if you think about it, teams that are healthy usually last the longest, right? One injury can change your whole trajectory.
Yeah.
For sure. Misty, you have anything that you wanted to ask?
No, I was just thinking the same thing. Like even working in Major League Soccer, I saw it all the time. Like we went through so many coaches because they may have been amazing with the team and the other assistant coaches, but when it came to the GM or the front office, things weren't lining up, right? It had to be on both ends, which is a huge job for any coach. I don't think a lot of people see that. So huge job on their end.
It's definitely more than X's and O's. Like, especially like in the basketball world, like you have someone that takes care of the statistical part of it. You have someone that takes care of the player development. You have someone that takes care of the X's and O's. You have someone that takes care of the financial. You have someone that takes care of the team needs. So you have all these people that are doing different jobs, and then you have to have the person that can deliver the message, which is usually the head coach. But he has to have all of the, you know, buy-in from everyone else, or I have to get all the correct information, you know, even down to the scouts. If I'm scouting against Vince and I'm like, force Vince left and back off of him and let him shoot, like, well, that would be a bad scout because Vince is going to go left. He's going to hit a mid-range. And if you back up and he has time, he's going to hit a shot. Well, if I'm getting this information as a coach, and I'm telling everybody this, it makes me look bad, but it's like, I'm getting information from this scout, right? But then you have other coaches who are saying, I've been watching film too, and I see that we shouldn't do that. So how do you, you know, like it's a huge tree, right? It's not just singular. Yeah. And that's one of the greatest things that I learned is, you know, like you have to be great in your moment, in your time, like for what you do, and don't step outside that box unless, you know, you have that opportunity to step out of that box, right? You're a defensive guy, stick with the defense until you get an opportunity to do offense. You're an offensive guy, stick with the, you know, offense. Like for myself, I try to pride myself that every person I've ever helped has gotten better. And I don't know a player who would say, I worked with PNutt and it didn't get any better. So if that's my lane, that's my lane. Now the hard part to navigate, which I say is unnavigatable, is I'm more than just a player development like guy. That's just how I had to get in. Like, I understand the defensive scheme. I understand how to talk to people. I understand the business aspect of it. But you only see me as a player development coach. And I can be replaced by another player development coach who has more experience with bigger names, with better people, with more teams. It doesn't necessarily say that I don't know what I'm doing. It's just I'm not that person's cup of tea, or I don't fit that, team's mold. I remember my first head coach in the NBA, he was like, I've been doing this like 18 years. I've been fired 9 times. And I'm just like, what? Yeah, because you move on to different teams because you have to fit whatever team that, works for you. And same thing with the players. Like, just because you play on this team, like, if you take, excluding like a Dirk and a Kobe, right? These guys, LeBron, well, not LeBron, but like the guys who played on one team for, 15, 20 years, when the system starts to change, they're older, so you have to move on. Like Allen Iverson said it best, great players should never have to leave their team. But Philly was like, we're ready to move on from this. We got to the finals, MVP, we are not taking anything from you. And then from there, he had to play a different role. It worked in Denver, but it didn't work in Memphis. It didn't work in Detroit. So it's like, well, I've been playing so long, might as well move on, right? Like, I'm a huge Carmelo fan. I think Carmelo can help a team.
Absolutely.
But he's old. He has a role, and either he's not willing to take that role, or teams aren't willing to pay this old guy who has a big personality who could potentially take over, a team, or take minutes away from a guy who they're trying to develop, right? Because every year someone's getting younger as someone's getting older. So it's like amazing for LeBron to be as old as he is and still averaging 20 plus points when you have a guy who's 18 who's like, I'm going to make my mark, on LeBron every time I play him. It's an every night thing for, people. And that's everybody, because even though you're playing on a team, doesn't mean people aren't scouting to say, he's going to be a free agent, or, we might have an opportunity for this. So there's just a lot of things that go on with it. It's not just basketball. Basketball is what we're there for, but it's like you have to be up on your stuff, or you could lose the opportunity.
For sure. We skip past a little coaching perspective. I want to talk a little bit about your player development for those that don't know. PNutt, we actually worked together in Iowa last season. 2 seasons ago now, if you count this season. And great dude, man. I loved him. Straightforward, straight shooter. Like he said, you get better working out with him, and he's a good job at making guys know and understand their role, and make them understand what's going to get them to either to the next level or what's going to get them on the court. So, and I know you work with somebody I know I played with, as you mentioned earlier, Gary Payton II. So just kind of run through that, because I feel like you guys had a special bond, and obviously that's how we kind of got a little tighter when I got there, is because we knew, like you talked about, this player, that player, and so that's kind of how these relationships form. So talk about how special it was to work with Gary and see him accomplish that with Golden State, and where he started from to where he finished. Or not finished, but where he is now. But he will be. I mean, he's not finished. He got some ways to go, but where he is going.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, so Little Gary, as we call him, but GP2, I had the opportunity to work with him as a young child when I was working with other pros. And I was just like, come on. And the thing is, shout out to his parents, Monique and Gary. They were hands off. And it was like, PNutt, this is what you do. This is your craft. You got it. But my thing was, at the time that I was doing this, I was helping other kids get into college. That was my thing. If I'm not helping a pro, whatever kid in school, and this was, I guess, the arrogance in myself, you can tell me this kid stinks, I'm going to show you that it's not stinky. And that's just because, I feel like that's who I am. You can say all this, but I'll prove to you. No one thought I was going to make it, to the NBA and to the G League, to coach and all that kind of stuff. No one picks me out in the crowd and says, oh, he's that guy. So with that, started working with Gary, and it just got more and more to a point where it's like, Gary, you can get an education, because that's my thing. I was always told, probably won't play pro, which I'm okay with that, but I can get an education. I was okay with that. So my thing was always telling people, or the kids, let's get an education. If you get a $40,000 scholarship, it's easy to go tell your parents, yo, I need a brand new car, because they either saved up for money for you to go to college that they're not going to use, or they'll say, because I'm not paying for college, I can, so that was kind of like the carrot that I would dangle. And so with Gary, working with him, it was like, he has other things he wasn't know. He has dyslexia. So we had to fight those different ideals on something. I was crying. But with Gary, so we worked academically and we worked athletically. And in doing that, the best opportunity for him was to kind of stay up under my wing. And so I'd bring Gary when I go work out professional guys. I would bring other pro players like Rashad McCants would come to the gym and talk to Gary and say, hey, I've been there, let me show you. So I had friends that would say, listen to PNutt, he knows what he's doing. And with that, I had a little plan. And I said, this is the plan. Let's go to prep school, because no one's biting on you, because every coach will tell me, oh, I don't think he's good enough. And I'm just like, he's good enough. You're just looking for the guy that looks like this, when this guy can do what those guys do. So he went to the prep school. He did qualify out of prep, but there were small schools that were looking at him. So I was like, let's go the JUCO route. He goes the JUCO route, becomes All-American. Now, this whole time, I'm still working with him. So every summer, every opportunity, every break, I'm just, wherever he's at, we go work. Then he comes down to when he's who he is in all these Division I schools. And everybody's like, oh, he's going to Oregon State. But that really wasn't his first choice. And that's the funny thing. His dad went there, and they were last on the recruiting trail. And it was actually Craig Robinson, Barack Obama's brother-in-law, who recruited Gary and was like, wow, I like Gary. I need a Gary. I believe that Gary can do this. And then he got let go. So Gary's like, what do I do? So Gary actually was going to go to St. Mary's, because he's from that Oakland area, his family. And he really liked St. Mary's a lot. So last minute, I'll never forget, we're on a family group text, and he was like, I'll come down on my decision, blah, blah, blah. Gave this whole speech. And then at the end, it was go Beavs. So everybody's like, oh, he's going to Oregon State. So that's how he told us. And then he went to Oregon State, and same thing. He worked. And then when it was coming out for the draft process, again, this is where the game becomes different, becomes a business. So I've been working with Gary since he's 12, 13 years old. And then the minute he turns pro, the agent steps in and sends him to someone else. And so it's screw PNutt.
That's terrible.
But at the same time, I'm the type of person, if that's what's best for you, I would never put that pressure on Gary to be like, oh, I can't believe it, because it's not his call. Now, luckily, he worked out with the NBA coach at that time, who is a friend of mine, and he, he's a mentor when it comes to the business side. He's the one who tells me all the time, PNutt, you made it and you weren't supposed to, right? But he would call and say, you've done an excellent job with Gary, right? So Gary goes undrafted, and I'll never forget, we're at Topgolf. I had a little party, and when all the picks were called, Gary's PNutt, meet me at the top. And at the Topgolf in Vegas, there's 3 floors. We're at the top, and everybody's in shock and boo-hoo-hoo, because he's Pac-12 player of the year. He's 2-time defensive player of the year. His dad didn't even do that. They got to the NCAA tournament. They hadn't been to the tournament since his dad was there in 90. It was just crazy. And for him not to get picked, everyone's in shock. Gary, we're sitting at the top. I'll never forget. We're sitting at the top, and he's just PNutt, everybody's all sad, but you and I. And I'm yeah, it's life, right? We'll get through it. He's yeah, but we've always been the underdog. He's so I'm ready to get to work when you are. And that's the relationship that I have with Gary. So it's beyond basketball. I tell him all the time, I could text Gary right now and say, I still think you're a crappy basketball player. And he'll just laugh. I've always said that. Even if I had I think he scored 50 in the G League. I was yeah, I could score 50 in the G League, because that's kind of my, who I am and how
that's definitely you.
Yeah, if I mess with you, I will heckle you every chance that I get, because that's my form of caring, but also I'll go to war for you, right? If you're stinking it up, I'll tell you, yeah, you're stinking it up, so this is why you don't play. And so now that he's made it, or signed a deal and so on and so forth. That's why like Vince was like, "Oh, you're trying to flex." Like, so for me, it's not a flex, it's like a reward. Like he calls and was like, "What size ring do you wear?"
Yeah.
Like when he, you know, won a championship, and I'm like, "Oh, okay." So, you know, it was a gift to me. And, you know, like obviously, you know, went to the finals and playoffs, you know, all that kind of stuff. Like, because that's just who he is. He's always like, he's rooting me on in my journey, right? You know, every time they play a team that I was coaching for, it's hugs and kisses at midcourt, you know what I mean? Laughs and jokes, like, you know, things like that. And so, like, we have like a bond, but it's not like I don't ever do that. Like, I'm the big brother thing. That's not what it is. Like, Gary's just a young man who trusted me to help guide his career. But I tell people all the time, it's not me that does it. Like, I'm not putting the ball in the hole. You know what I mean? Like, you have to go out there and compete. You have to go. And even to this day, even when I was like in Orlando, even when I was in, you know, Minnesota and Iowa, like Gary was still called. Like, "Yo, did you catch that game?" I'm like, "No," because I'm like doing some other scouts or doing something else. Like, I don't have time to catch the game. Like, "Oh man, like, well, if you got time, can you, you know, check and see?" I'm like, "No, I don't have time. Like, you stink." You know what I mean? Like, so that's just kind of who we are. And then since I've had some free time, like, it's back to the same thing. Like, he's rooting for me right now, you know, to like land another spot because he believes in me, and there's other players in the league who believe in me.
I believe in you. We all believe in you.
I appreciate that, Vino. It's just a matter of someone giving me the real opportunity. Like I did the whole, be the video guy, work your way up. It doesn't really even work like that. Like, there's a lot of video guys who have gotten jobs, but like, it's just the right opportunity.
Right.
And not every guy needs video. And then there's a lot of guys who need video. It's just a matter of getting in where you fit in. And I felt like as soon as I got the ball rolling, right? Because I got a lot of press from Gary. And the funny thing is, he's one of many people that have helped. But we just had that, as Vince was saying, like that relationship where it was a little different because any opportunity he gets, any article, magazine, you need to call PNutt. Like, he'll tell you the truth. Like, I remember I was in Portland when he first signed. He's like, "Oh, come to Portland." So I go out to Portland, and he was on a podcast, and they asked him, like, who's like the one person who, you know, like pushes you, got you there, you know, and everybody thinks it's going to be like, oh my dad. But his dad is like, "Yo, that's my son. Like, whatever he chooses to do, like, he's going to do. Like, I'm just the parent, you know, I'll guide him if he needs guidance." And Gary's always like, "Oh, it's PNutt." And I happen to be sitting right next to him. Like, he's like, "Oh, he's sitting right next to me." And they're like, "Oh, is he?" So they like put me on the podcast. I'm like, "Yeah, like, I mean, you know, it's not really my thing. Like, Gary's just you know, he's a little more than somebody that I work out. You know what I mean?" Like,
you a modest guy. You like to stick behind the scenes. I know.
Yeah. Like my thing is like, I shouldn't have to go brag and boast about how good I am. It should be, Vince should go tell somebody, "Y'all tripping. I know somebody." You know what I mean? This person should go, like, someone should see that, or someone should ask. Like the GM who's in Orlando, like, he asked about me, right? So he got to know like the inside of me. Yeah. And then when the head coach hired me, it was like a reference, like, "Hey, I believe in this guy." You know, so, and then when we all got fired, it was like, peace. Like, hey, a new coach coming in with his people. You're like, "Oh, okay."
That's the way it goes.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Well, it is. Well, we're going to switch up gears a little bit. We know we got Game 7, the two best words to hear in the sports industry. I know who Misty is going for, PNutt. First of all, PNutt, who do you think is going to win this series?
So I'm going to go with Miami. And I'm going to go with Miami because I think for me, and again, this is my mindset, I'm not trying to be the first team to be down, you know, be up 3-0 and then come back and get hot. So I am like, you know how they say leave everything on the field?
For sure.
And I will tell you this, like, it's an opportunity to be inside the bubble, right? So I actually got to see, like, everybody sees that picture of like Jimmy Butler where he's like hovered over like the stanchion, like out of breath. Like, the bubble basketball, for those that didn't get to like experience it, it was some of the best because it was only basketball. So when it was over,
Right.
it was like, what are we doing? Oh, they're gonna go eat. They're gonna go hang out with their other teammates. And it's back to the gym, back to like it was just straight. There was no outside noise. So when they like gave it their all, like they gave it their all. Like the Jamal Murray, I think it was Donovan Mitchell, like 40-point game back to back with that. Like it was almost like a super intense, like street ball AAU.
Facts,
it was like everything
balling.
of basketball, like any basketball, like little kids basketball, is everything combined, like because they were like playing their hardest. So like
AAU days almost.
Yeah, like you just play. And so for me, I see Jimmy and that team doing that. Now, being that I've like been in Boston, because that's where my buddy was drafted.
Now you're gonna give us the devil's advocate, man.
No, I'm just saying, like those fans, that energy, you know, that just it can like make you look around and look in the Raptors like, man, look at all these banners, like the luck of the leprechaun is here. Like you can feel that from a fan. So I could imagine from a, you know, player standpoint. But for me, I'm thinking Miami's going to say, you know, I'm not going to, you know, lose this 3-0 lead. But if I had to pick, I'm going to definitely go with a tie. How about that?
A tie. Misty, get him. You want to tell him?
You can't remain neutral.
You want to tell him why you're wrong, Misty? I
gotta remain neutral. Somebody might hire me on either squad. I don't know.
you both are like, wait a minute, we're still here. We're still in the world.
I would say Miami. You know,
Miami. I will give you that. I think Jimmy's a wild card right now, right? You're either going to get the best of Jimmy or you're going to get so Jimmy, and not knowing which Jimmy you're going to get tonight, it's hard to say. But I have to say, I feel like the Celtics are on one right now, and I feel like they're going to break a record tonight. I feel like they're going to be the first NBA team to do this. I just have a feeling, right? And if we are firing on all cylinders and our defense is clean and we are not.
You said if we are firing, like you're part of that. You're part of the team. You have a jersey that we don't know about. Like,
wait a minute. I actually. I did. I took it off. I wore it to work today. I'm a huge Celtics fan.
Trying to come on the podcast unbiased. She's biased right now for sure.
I
picked Celtics in 7. I did. Even after starting down 0-3, I picked Celtics in 7. So
you did. You said, and I quote, I have it on text. You said Celtics in 7. Even when we were down 0-3.
I would tell you this. Like, so I'm a huge Jaylen Brown fan. Like, huge Jaylen Brown. Like, if he would call me and say, hey, come work me out, I can add some shit to his game. Like a huge fan. I just think, like, the reason why I like this series, they are two, as I always say, like, a lot of you people say, oh, I'm a dog, I got dog. Like, these are two pit bull dogs. Sometimes you got some pit bull puppies, right? Oh, you're a dog, but you're a pit bull puppy. These are like two grown pit bull dogs going after it. So you're right. You don't know what Jimmy you may get, but at the same time, you don't know what Celtics, because the Celtics are like, to me, the young kids in the schoolyard who are tired of getting bullied by the OG bully who's running. But the OG bully's like, I'm still the OG bully, right? And it's like, you have like Eric Spoelstra, right? This 15-year tenured coach who's won it, you know, and then you have this, you know, Joe Mazzulla who's like, yo, it's my first year as the head coach, and like, I'm showing you, like, I should be in this seat. You know what I mean? Even down to like Udonis Haslem, right? UD, like, he might not play, and he's still like, don't make me get out there and show you, you know, like,
right?
Like it's just so, like, I'm excited to see this.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I think. What do you think? What would you think the Heat has to do tonight, being on the road, going into Game 7? As crazy as the atmosphere, you know how it's gonna be. If you was giving anybody on the team or giving the team some advice, any type of tips on the game, like, what do you think they would need to get done in order to get this game won tonight?
All right, I'll give you two things. If I were giving my Miami Heat pep talk, right, my pep talk is, we're here for a reason. You guys know what you're capable of. Yes, we've had a mishap here or there. I mean, look how we played last game and the shot that beat us.
Right.
I would almost take that every game if that's how I had to lose, because it was like, I'm not going to say a freak accident, right time, right place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have anything to be ashamed of. So go out there and just be the Miami Heat. Now, I'm flipping. If I was in the Celtics locker room, I would say they are scared. They're down. Like we are hawking them. We are coming. Like they don't know what to expect. So just keep the pressure on them. So it's like that's how I would if I was in either locker room. But for the Heat to win, it's play Miami Heat basketball. Don't rush. Grind it out. Defend every single possession, even the timeout possessions, and make a mistake.
I agree.
Yeah.
He got me on that one. He always stay in the neutral zone, so I gotta.
I gave you.
I'll let you live. I'll let you live.
I appreciate it.
We talked about coaches, players, how you feel. What is and probably I don't want to get too personal for you because I know you like to be behind the scenes, but what do you see as your goal, that you're going to next season? Because like I said, you got guys that believe in you. I believe in you. Players believe in you because we actually work with you firsthand. What is it that you can see yourself getting into, that's going to be coming up for yourself? Unless you want to keep that under wraps, and you don't gotta disclose that. But
no, there's no, we've been talking open book. If I believe that the information is going to be used positively. So for me, in my basketball world, how my thinking is, right? Like I would want to do what I've done, right? I've done video, I've done assistant coaching. I want to be a head coach. I want to move to the front office and be a GM, and I want to eventually end as a president. However that looks, that would be the steps I'd like to take. But if someone calls me right now and says, "You want to GM a team?" Yeah, if I, why not?
Right, he's gone. Yeah,
steps if I had the knowledge, right? But as far as for me, like there's a few coaches out there who I have befriended and they've seen my work and they trust, and it's just a matter of like them getting a head job. And if they get a head job, I'm hoping to get that call. And I stay in contact, with the people that stay in contact with me, and I reach out. And I'm the type of person, and Vince, I don't reach out because I need something. I reach out because I truly respect, the person that I'm reaching out to. Like I don't have any animosity, ill feelings. Like I tell people all the time, this is a luxury job. Like this isn't a career. Like not everyone can apply to be an NBA coach, right? Like you have to work and you have to get lucky and you have to get the right break and it's timing and it's God, it's all that. So if my career ended today, I could say, I've worked with the NBA team, I've worked in the G League, I have a ring, and I have a lot of personal relationships that I, cherish because of basketball. But I'm not done. And, there's a couple jobs open. There's a couple people that I know who are, getting those jobs. And there's, one in particular who I think had things went well the other year and he had taken a job. I know for a fact I probably would have had the opportunity to, move to that squad, and I, potentially wouldn't have been with Vino, right? I know there's some G League jobs and situations, but for me, the G League, I have to have a more clear-cut defined role. Like if I was selfish, I need to be the head coach. Like it's cool being an assistant, and I loved being the assistant. I did well as the assistant. But I also I understand basketball. I had great teachers along the way, and I had a great teacher my first experience in the NBA. So I get it, and I understand it. So for me, I'm still hoping and praying. But like I said, at the end of the day, man, healthy family, healthy mindset. I'm smart enough to get a job, right? A working job, so I've never been scared of work, but I just know my passion and what I bleed, and I know God's gonna open the door for me in the basketball world, and when He does, because of what I've learned, I get it. I came in naive. Oh, I work for this team. I'll work for this team forever. What? It's over. You know what I mean? Oh, to another team. Okay, cool. I'm there. Oh, I'm gonna do this. It's over. And it's things that I couldn't control. So I can only control me. And that's why I think the relationships that I have. Like, if certain coaches get jobs, that's just kind of what they do. Like, I like this guy. I know how this guy works. So this guy's a really good reference. And I trust the person that he got the reference from.
Yeah.
And, and I'm doing this, like, getting into this is like on my own. Like, I haven't had any help other than being in the right place, shaking the right hand, and like doing the right thing. And the one person that helps me is a dear friend. And if I'm like, yo, make a call, they make it, like, before I got in, like, Gary's mom would be like, hey, I know this person. And she would just like introduce me. And so nothing would come from it, but she was just like, you help my son, why can I help you? I can introduce you people. I don't know if they'll help you, but I can introduce. And just the introduction allowed people, when they saw me in different spaces, oh, hey, I met you through Gary. Oh, I met you through Monique. Oh, I met you through little Gary, things like that. It's like, oh, I didn't know that was your buddy. So that worked. And then, my other buddy who, I'm like, need you to make a call. I got you, PNutt. Like, no big deal. And he's been knowing me since, I was 22 years old. You know what I mean? So it's like, 20 plus years later, this person's like a friend of mine who like believes in me and believes in my abilities, and he'll make a call. So we'll see. But I tell you, they don't want me to be the head coach. I'll be everywhere. I'll get there eventually. If it's meant for me, I'll get there.
For sure.
Nice.
Most definitely. Misty, is there anything else you want to touch on with Mr. PNutt here?
No, I think just the way that you talk about it, you seem very passionate, and I'm a huge believer in the way that the universe hears us. So I think you're already visualizing that. So I can't wait to see where you are soon, right? That's how it works.
Hopefully. Yeah, that's how it works.
Before we go here, I don't want to hear it. I don't want you in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of Celtic Heat win, who wins the finals? Let's say if the Celtics win, who wins the finals against the Nuggets? If the Heat win, who wins the finals against the Nuggets? I need a prediction, PNutt.
The Nuggets. I'm gonna go with my boy AG and the Nuggets, right? AG. So AG's like one of my guys. Like
I just had to make sure. I wanted to see where your loyalty lied at right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, listen, I was having a text conversation with some friends of mine, like one that still works in Orlando and another one that worked in Orlando. And like AG made like this rap song. And in his rap, he was like, 80 M's is a bargain. Talking about like he got an $80 million contract extension. He's like, that's a bargain. And so I sent that, and like my buddies were like laughing, like, oh, I can't believe he did that. I was like, he might be right. He's in the finals. Like, so I root for good basketball all the time, but I'll give the slight edge to AG just because like I was his rebounding guru when I was in Orlando. I was chasing every rebound possible for AG when he was working. So I'll go with AG and those guys.
Very cool.
That's all I got on my end, Misty. I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to ask.
I got nothing else. My stomach is starting to growl, and I'm like, I hope that's not coming from the microphone. I'm gonna make it hear that.
Well, I tell you this was wonderful. I appreciate it. Vince, I I'm gonna always be PNutt, you know what I mean? So I always say something crazy, and hope the family's well, all that. But this is a blessing. I appreciate you guys. This is awesome. I can't wait to go follow and watch and do what I do. But I thank you for the opportunity. No, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me.
We appreciate you, my guy. Thank you for joining us.
Always.
Thank you for sharing your story. I always love to hear these stories. So
appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, I think that is all we have for this week, you guys. This episode will be out, crazy enough, the day after Game 7. So we're going to see how it all unfolds. I want to thank everybody for tuning in again with Sports and Ish with Misty V and Vince Edwards. We are on every single podcast platform. That is Apple, that is Spotify, that is iHeartRadio. We are everywhere. We are also on YouTube at Sports and Ish. We would love it if you could like, rate, review us. We really, really need that. So come through with that. If you guys have questions, message. You can message on Instagram. You can message on YouTube. You can find us everywhere, including Twitter. Have a great week, guys. We'll see you soon.